You probably learned to cook Indian food completely wrong. The techniques your grandmother swore by, the ones that got quietly banned from modern recipe books, dismissed by nutritionists, and laughed out of professional kitchens for decades, are now being validated by food scientists as some of the most brilliant cooking methods ever developed. These are not myths. These are not superstitions. These are 25 actual techniques from 1960s Indian home kitchens that were genuinely forbidden, ridiculed, or replaced by so-called better methods. And science has now circled back to say the grandmothers were right all along. We are counting down from 25, and each one comes with exactly how to do it and why it actually works. Number 25. Soaking lentils in warm water with a pinch of baking soda overnight. In the 1960s, Indian households kept large clay pots of dal soaking on the kitchen floor every single night. Health inspectors and early nutrition boards in post-independence India began discouraging this practice in urban areas, calling it unsanitary and nutritionally wasteful. Here is how to do it properly. Take 1 cup of any dal, add 2 cups of warm water, not hot, and add exactly 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Soak for 8 to 12 hours, rinse thoroughly before cooking. The science is now clear. Soaking breaks down phytic acid, the anti-nutrient that blocks your body from absorbing iron, zinc, and calcium from lentils. The alkaline environment created by the baking soda accelerates this process significantly. Americans cooking Indian food at home will get dramatically better mineral absorption from every pot of dal they make using this simple step. Number 24. Frying mustard seeds until they turn gray. Every 1960s South Indian cook knew to keep frying mustard seeds past the popping stage until they went slightly gray and the popping stopped completely. Food safety guides from the 1970s began warning against this, labeling it burning and a sign of incompetent cooking. The method is straightforward. Heat oil in a pan until it shimmers, add mustard seeds, wait for them to pop, then keep the heat on for exactly 20 more seconds after the popping slows completely. The seeds darken slightly. Food chemists now confirm that the additional heat transforms the glucose enolates in mustard seeds into allyl isothiocyanates, compounds with documented antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. The gray stage unlocks the chemistry that the pop stage leaves behind. Number 23. Cooking in iron kadai without washing it with soap. In 1960s Indian kitchens, the iron kadai was wiped clean with a cloth or rinsed with water and dried over flame, never touched by soap. Modern hygiene campaigns specifically targeted this practice, and by the early 1970s, urban Indian cooking schools taught students to soap wash all cookware. The technique is this. After cooking in a cast iron pan or kadai, rinse it with hot water only. Use a stiff brush to remove food particles, then place it directly on the stove flame for 2 minutes to dry completely, and rub a thin layer of oil while still warm. Scientists now understand that the seasoning layer built up over decades of soap-free use is a polymerized oil coating that is actually more hygienic than bare metal, and it continuously leaches small amounts of dietary iron into your food, which is a significant health benefit for the iron-deficient diets common in both India and America. Number 22. Adding raw rice to thicken yogurt-based gravies. Cooks in rural Rajasthan and Gujarat in the 1960s would grind a small amount of uncooked rice and stir it directly into kadhi or yogurt curry before heating. This was later banned from restaurant training manuals in the 1980s as an inferior shortcut. Do it this way. Take 1 tablespoon of raw white rice, grind it to a fine powder in a blender, and whisk it into 1 cup of full-fat yogurt before adding the yogurt to your hot pan. The rice starch gelatinizes as it heats, creating a physically stable protein-starch network that prevents the yogurt from breaking and curdling. Modern food scientists call this process starch-stabilized protein emulsification. It is the exact same principle behind stabilized Greek yogurt sauces used in professional kitchens across Europe today. Number 21. Charring onions directly on a gas flame before adding to gravy. In 1960s Punjabi household cooking, cooks would hold a whole onion directly over an open flame with tongs, turning it until the outer layers were completely black before peeling and grinding. This was gradually removed from Indian cooking instruction because it was considered wasteful and charred food was associated with carcinogens. Here's the method. Place a whole unpeeled onion directly on your gas burner over medium-high flame. Turn it every minute using tongs for about 8 to 10 minutes until the exterior is completely charred and the interior softens. Peel off the black layers entirely and use only the softened interior. The interior of the onion develops Maillard compounds and caramelized sugars that are fundamentally different in flavor depth from pan-cooked onions, and the charred exterior actually acts as a protective barrier preventing moisture loss during cooking. Restaurants charge a premium for this flavor profile today. Number 20. Tempering spices in mustard oil smoke. In 1960s Bengal, Bihar, and Uttar Pradesh, mustard oil was deliberately heated until it hit its smoking point before spices were added. This practice was specifically banned from commercial food preparation in India by the 1990s and was heavily discouraged in American cooking after reports about erucic acid content in mustard oil. The actual technique works like this. Heat mustard oil in a pan over medium heat for 3 to 4 minutes until you see a thin line of smoke rise and the oil changes from yellow to pale golden. Remove from heat for 30 seconds, then return to medium-low heat before adding spices. At the smoke point, the erucic acid content actually diminishes significantly, and the oil develops pungent aromatic compounds called isothiocyanates that are responsible for the distinctive North Indian flavor that no other oil replicates. The brief smoking essentially refines the oil and changes its chemical composition. Number 19. Cooking rice in banana leaves sealed with clay. In Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and parts of Karnataka in the 1960s, rice was wrapped in banana leaves, sealed with a paste made from clay and water, and cooked in steam or buried in ash embers. Urban cooking education movements of the late 1960s replaced this with pressure cookers and aluminum pans, calling the clay sealing primitive. To replicate this today, wrap seasoned rice tightly in 2 layers of fresh banana leaves available at most Asian grocery stores in America. Tie with kitchen twine and steam for 40 minutes in a covered pot with 2 inches of boiling water. The banana leaf releases polyphenolic compounds, including catechins and chlorophyll derivatives, directly into the rice during cooking. These compounds have documented antioxidant activity. The food science term for this is phytochemical migration during thermal processing, and it makes the rice measurably more nutritious than plain boiled rice. Number 18. Keeping a piece of dried tamarind in stored spice blends. In 1960s Tamil and Telugu households, every spice daba had a small piece of dried tamarind tucked inside the container of garam masala or sambar powder. Food preservation guides from that era eventually labeled this as contamination risk and removed it from standard practice. Place a small 1-inch piece of dry tamarind directly inside your airtight spice container alongside your masala blend. The tamarind acts as a natural hygroscopic agent, meaning it absorbs ambient moisture that would otherwise cause your ground spices to clump and oxidize. The mild acidity also inhibits microbial growth inside the container. Food scientists studying spice preservation now confirm that maintaining low moisture environments inside spice storage is the single most important factor in preserving volatile aromatic compounds, and tamarind does this organically without any chemical additives. Number 17. Adding a whole dried red chili to hot ghee before any other ingredients. In 1960s Maharashtrian and Gujarati kitchens, a single whole dried red chili was always the very first ingredient to enter hot ghee in any tempering sequence, ahead of mustard seeds, cumin, and everything else. Modern cooking instruction eliminated this step as unnecessary and added a fire hazard. The sequence is non-negotiable in this method. Heat ghee over medium flame, add 1 whole dried red chili when the ghee shimmers, count to 15 seconds as it darkens and puffs slightly, then proceed with your other tempering ingredients. The chili skin contains capsaicin and fat-soluble carotenoids that infuse directly into the ghee during those 15 seconds. Research in lipid chemistry confirms that fat-soluble capsaicin distributes more evenly throughout a dish when pre-infused into the cooking fat than when added at any other stage, improving both flavor uniformity and the documented metabolic benefits of capsaicin consumption. Number 16. Grinding fresh coconut with its water included. Every 1960s South Indian cook ground freshly cracked coconut with the coconut water still inside it, never discarding the liquid. Post-1970s health advice told people to discard coconut water as excess liquid that made gravies runny, and modern recipe writers omitted it entirely. When you crack a fresh coconut, collect the water in a bowl. Add both the white flesh and the coconut water into your blender when making coconut paste for any curry or chutney. The coconut water contains electrolytes in a specific enzyme called coconut peroxidase that, when ground with the flesh, creates a more stable emulsion than dry ground coconut produces. The emulsion holds up significantly better under heat without separating, which explains why restaurant coconut curries stay creamy and home versions often turn oily. This is basic emulsion chemistry that was practiced intuitively long before anyone named it. Number 15. Leaving cooked rice uncovered at room temperature for 30 minutes before serving. In 1960s, Indian households across every region, cooked rice was turned out onto a wide thali or large plate and left uncovered at room temperature for exactly 30 minutes before eating. Food safety guidelines introduced from the 1970s onward specifically prohibited leaving cooked rice at room temperature for any period, citing bacterial risk. The safety consideration here is real, so the modern application is important. Allow cooked rice to rest uncovered for exactly 20 to 30 minutes maximum, then serve or refrigerate immediately. During this rest period, the gelatinized starch in the rice partially retrograded, meaning some digestible starch converts to resistant starch. Research from glycemic index studies confirms that properly rested rice has a meaningfully lower glycemic index than immediately served rice, which matters enormously for the millions of Americans managing blood sugar alongside carbohydrate consumption. Number 14. Cooking with a clay pot that was never fully cleaned between uses. In 1960s, rural Indian kitchens, the same clay matka or handi was used daily for months and years with only a rinse and dry between uses. Urban health campaigns in India specifically targeted clay pots as unsanitary bacterial breeding grounds and pushed aluminum cookware aggressively. To use this method today, season a new clay pot by soaking it in water for 24 hours, then rub the interior with oil and heat it gradually on low flame for an hour. After each use, rinse with hot water only, no soap, and dry in the sun or over low flame. The clay is naturally microporous. Repeated use builds a mineral-rich biofilm on the interior that alkalizes acidic foods, adds trace calcium and magnesium, and the clay itself acts as a slow cooker that distributes heat more evenly than metal. Scientists studying traditional cookware now confirm that clay-cooked food has measurably different mineral profiles than the same food cooked in aluminum. Number 13. Using stale leftover ghee on fresh rotis instead of fresh ghee. In 1960s Indian households, the ghee tin always contained layers of older ghee underneath fresh ghee, and the rotis were specifically smeared with ghee that was weeks or months old from the bottom of the tin. Modern food hygiene education condemned old ghee as rancid and dangerous. Aged ghee, which is different from rancid ghee, is a deliberate process. Keep pure cow ghee in a sealed container at room temperature away from light. Ghee properly made with no moisture present does not go rancid like butter. After 4 to 6 weeks, it develops short-chain fatty acid profiles including butyric acid concentrations that measurably increase. Food science confirms butyric acid is the primary fuel for colonocytes, the cells lining your colon, and is directly linked to gut health outcomes. Aged ghee is now sold commercially in India as a premium health product. Number 12. Adding unrefined black salt to fresh fruit chayat instead of table salt. In 1960s, Indian street food culture and home cooking, kala namak or black salt was the default seasoning for all fresh fruit and vegetable preparations. The sulfurous smell repelled foreign nutrition boards and international food guides, and it was specifically excluded from modernized Indian recipe books targeting Western audiences. Use kala namak available in Indian grocery stores across America by replacing regular salt entirely in any fresh salad, raita, or fruit preparation at a ratio of 1:1. The sulfur compounds in black salt, primarily hydrogen, sulfide and trace sulfur dioxide, stimulate specific digestive enzyme production in the stomach. Research in digestive biochemistry confirms these compounds trigger pepsin secretion, the enzyme responsible for protein digestion, which explains why a pinch of black salt dramatically improves digestibility of heavy protein-rich meals. Number 11. Mixing turmeric directly into cooking oil before adding any other ingredient. In 1960s, Gujarati and Rajasthani cooking, a pinch of turmeric went into the oil before anything else, including the tempering spices. Nutrition education programs later placed turmeric as a spice to be added mid-cook with other powders, citing no practical reason to add it first. The method is deliberate. When you heat your cooking oil, add a quarter teaspoon of turmeric before adding any other ingredient and let it sit in the hot oil for 30 seconds. The fat-soluble curcumin in turmeric requires lipid for absorption in the human body. Studies confirm that curcumin bioavailability increases by up to 20-fold when dissolved in fat rather than added to water-based gravies. Heating it first also helps activate the curcumin molecule. This single change makes every Indian curry you cook dramatically more beneficial than the same dish with turmeric added at the wrong stage. Number 10. Fermenting idli and dosa batter in an earthen pot for 3 days instead of overnight. In 1960s South Indian households, batter sat in a clay pot for up to 72 hours in warm weather, far exceeding the 24-hour fermentation now considered standard. Food safety advisors specifically cautioned against long fermentation, fearing spoilage and acidosis risk. The method requires attention. Prepare your idli or dosa batter as normal. Transfer to a clay or glass container, cover loosely with a cloth, and allow it to ferment at room temperature for 48 to 72 hours, watching for a sour, active, bubbly surface. The extended fermentation multiplies lactobacillus strains exponentially beyond 24-hour batter counts. Research published in food microbiology journals confirms that 72-hour fermented batter has probiotic bacterial counts nearly 4 times higher than standard overnight batter. The resulting idlis and dosas are more sour, more digestible, and substantially richer in B vitamins including riboflavin and folate. Number 9. Covering biryani with a heavy stone weight on top of the sealed lid. In 1960s Hyderabadi and Lucknow households, the dum biryani pot had not just a sealed dough lid, but a heavy stone or iron weight placed on top. Modern biryani instruction eliminated the stone as redundant once tight-fitting lids became standard. The physics are simple but important. After sealing your biryani pot with either a dough seal or a tightly wrapped foil layer, place a cast iron pan or a heavy Dutch oven lid directly on top. The added weight increases the internal pressure of the sealed vessel slightly, raising the effective steam temperature inside above standard boiling point. This pressure differential forces aromatic compounds from the spices and caramelized rice crust into the surrounding rice grains through a process food scientists describe as pressure-assisted flavor infusion. Every grain of rice in the pot picks up flavor that open lid or lightly covered biryani physically cannot achieve. Number 8. Washing rice 7 times and keeping the final rinse water for cooking vegetables. In 1960s Indian households, rice washing water was never discarded. The milky 7th rinse water was used as the base liquid for cooking dals, sabzis, and soups. Modern kitchen hygiene guides told home cooks to discard all rice water and start with fresh water for everything. Rinse your rice with cold water 7 times, saving only the final rinse water, which should be slightly cloudy. Use this as partial cooking liquid in your next dal or vegetable dish. Rice rinsing water contains water-soluble B vitamins, specifically thiamine and niacin, along with soluble fiber and surface starch. Using it as cooking water transfers these nutrients into your food at no additional cost. Japanese culinary science, which independently arrived at this same practice, calls this suihanki am and has documented its nutritional transfer properties extensively. Number 7. Dry roasting spices in a clay pot instead of a metal pan. In 1960s spice-forward Indian cooking from Kerala to Kashmir, the clay tawa was used exclusively for roasting whole spices before grinding. Metal pans were considered too harsh for spice roasting and were specifically avoided by traditional cooks. Clay was labeled inefficient and replaced with stainless steel in modern kitchen recommendations. Use a clay tawa or unglazed clay plate over medium heat to dry roast your whole spices. Allow the clay to heat slowly for 5 minutes before adding spices. Clay heats and distributes temperature far more evenly than metal, which runs hot in the center. Uneven metal heat causes outer spice layers to scorch, while inner essential oils remain incompletely volatilized. Clay provides a consistent thermal environment where volatile aromatic compounds develop fully across the entire spice surface. The resulting ground masala has noticeably more aromatic complexity than metal-roasted spices because all essential oil fractions activate at their optimal temperatures rather than burning or underdeveloping. Number 6. Adding a piece of raw mango to tur dal as it cooks. In 1960s households across Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, a piece of raw, unripe mango was dropped directly into the pressure cooker with the tur dal and water before cooking. Modernized dal recipes eliminated this as a regional quirk with no function. Use a 2-inch piece of raw green mango, skin and all, added directly to your tur dal and water before pressure cooking. Remove the mango piece before serving or mash it in. Raw mango contains tartaric acid and malic acid that work on lentil cell walls during cooking. These organic acids partially break down the oligosaccharides in dal that are specifically responsible for gas and bloating. Food chemistry research on legume digestibility identifies organic acid pretreatment as one of the most effective methods for reducing flatulence-causing compounds, and a raw mango piece achieves this naturally during the cooking process itself. Number 5. Storing chopped ginger in salt and lime juice for daily use. In 1960s Indian kitchens, ginger was never chopped fresh daily. Instead, a large batch was minced mixed with coarse salt and fresh lime juice and stored in a sealed clay or glass jar for the entire week. Food preservation guidelines introduced in the 1970s and 80s recommended fresh ginger only and warned against home preservation methods. Make a batch by finely mincing or grinding half a cup of fresh ginger, mix with 1 teaspoon of coarse sea salt and 2 teaspoons of fresh lime juice. Store in a sealed glass jar in the refrigerator. The acidic and saline environment creates a preservation matrix that actually increases the bioavailability of gingerols and shogols, the active compounds in ginger responsible for anti-inflammatory and digestive effects. Research confirms that mild acid exposure converts less potent gingerols into more potent shogols over time, meaning week-old preserved ginger is actually more medicinally active than fresh-cut ginger. Number 4. Cooking fish curry in the same vessel where it was marinated with no cleaning between steps. In 1960s, coastal Indian kitchens from Kerala to Bengal, fish was marinated in the exact vessel it would be cooked in, and cooking began in that same marination vessel with all residue included. Food safety guidance specifically warned against this, citing cross-contamination concerns. The key is that this only applies when cooking immediately precedes marination with no time gap. Marinate your fish in the cooking vessel using turmeric, salt, chili, and lime for 20 minutes maximum. Then place the vessel directly on heat and begin cooking immediately, using the marination liquid as the start of your gravy base. The acid from the lime and the antimicrobial properties of turmeric during that 20-minute marination window create a self-sanitizing effect confirmed in food microbiology research. The marination liquid itself becomes the most flavor-concentrated layer of your curry foundation, containing dissolved proteins and aromatic compounds that would be lost if the vessel were washed. Number 3. Leaving tadka oil to cool and re-solidify in the pan before pouring over finished dal. In 1960s households across the Hindi belt in Rajasthan, after preparing a fresh tadka, the cook would remove the pan from heat and specifically wait until the tempered oil began to cool and slightly thicken before pouring it over the finished dal or sabzi. Modern recipe instruction universally says to pour sizzling hot tadka immediately. Remove your prepared tadka from heat and wait a full 2 to 3 minutes until the oil cools from frying temperature to approximately body temperature warmth. Then pour over your dish. When sizzling hot tadka hits hot dal, the dramatic temperature differential causes immediate aromatic compound volatilization, meaning the fragrant molecules escape into the air above your pot rather than absorbing into the food. Pouring slightly cooled tadka allows the aromatic compounds to migrate slowly into the dish through diffusion rather than vaporizing instantly. The resulting dal has deeper spice flavor penetration throughout rather than just a surface aroma hit. Number 2. Grinding masala on a flat stone with the wet stone surface never rinsed between spices. In 1960s, Indian households, the silbata or flat grinding stone accumulated a palimpsest of spice residues over years. It was never soaped, only rinsed with water and dried. Health modernization programs in India specifically condemned unwashed grinding stones as bacteria harboring surfaces and pushed for machine-ground or blender-made masalas. To replicate this layered grinding surface, use a dedicated granite mortar and pestle that you reserve only for spice grinding and season it by grinding raw rice until the surface becomes uniformly fine. Then begin using it exclusively for spices, cleaning only with water. The microabrasions in the granite surface retain trace amounts of previously ground spices. Each new grinding session incorporates these traces into the fresh masala, creating what flavor chemists describe as a matrix effect or compound flavor memory. Professionally, this is exactly what aged wooden barrels do. For wine, the stone builds a flavor library over years of use that no blender can replicate. And number one, the most brilliant and widely banned trick of all: boiling milk with a full bay leaf and 2 green cardamom pods before using it in any sweet or savory preparation. In 1960s, Indian households from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, no milk-based dish began without this 3-minute infusion step. Food science education programs that proliferated in Indian home economics classes during the late 1960s and 1970s eliminated this as superstition with no measurable benefit. The method is this: bring your milk to just below a boil over medium heat. Add 2 whole green cardamom pods lightly crushed and 1 dried bay leaf. Hold at a gentle simmer for 3 minutes, then strain and use. Bay leaves contain the compound linalool, and cardamom contains 1,8-cineol and terpineol acetate. These compounds interact with the fat molecules in whole milk through a process food chemists call aromatic lipid binding, where volatile aromatic molecules literally embed themselves within fat globule membranes. The resulting milk carries these flavor and bioactive compounds into every dish it touches, and more importantly, both linalool and 1,8-cineol have documented anti-inflammatory properties that survive moderate heat exposure. This single 3-minute step turns ordinary milk into an infused therapeutic cooking medium. And it is the reason grandmothers who cooked this way said their food tasted different in a way they could never fully explain. Everything on this channel, including techniques like these, but going even deeper into the chemistry and application, is something I've been working to gather into one definitive resource. The Complete Indian Kitchen Bible has over 900 clever cooking tricks, techniques, and restaurant secrets, and it is the complete collection of everything from this channel, finally, in one place. The tricks in this video are not included because I want this channel to stay a source of genuinely new material for you. So everything in the book is content you will not find here.